Drink a 12-ounce glass of milk. Double the only hormone that makes breast cancer grow once you get it.
Today it's all about milk. We're hurting ourselves or healing ourselves. It's your choice. Let's get started. All right, we're getting right to it today with 6 reasons you should avoid dairy at all cost from Ultra Wellness TV.
Hi, this is Dr. Mark Hyman. Today I'm going to tell you 6 reasons why you should avoid dairy. Got milk? Well, these days it seems like almost everybody does. Celebrities, athletes, even former President Clinton's head of Health and Human Services, Donna Shalala, are all proud to wear the white milk mustache. After all, everybody knows that you need milk to be healthy, right? Not necessarily. Sure, dairy is nature's perfect food, but only if you're a calf. If that sounds shocking to you, it's because very few people are willing to tell the truth about dairy. In fact, criticizing milk in America is like taking on motherhood, apple pie, or baseball. But that's just what I'm about to do. Based on the research and my experience in practicing medicine, I typically advise most of my patients to avoid dairy products completely. I like ice cream just as much as the next person, but as a scientist, I have to look honestly at what we know. In just a second, I'll explore the many ill effects that are documented from eating dairy. Now, that advice flies in the face of the new up-to-date food pyramid from the United States Department of Agriculture. Now, the USDA's food pyramid recommends drinking 3 glasses of milk a day. What's wrong with that? Well, for one thing, it's a recommendation that's not based on strict science. And some of the experts who helped create the pyramid actually work for the dairy industry, which makes the U.S. Department of Agriculture recommendations reflect industry interests, not science or our best interest. In fact, Dr. Walter Willett, the second most cited scientist in all of clinical medicine and the head of nutrition at Harvard School of Public Health, is one of the most vocal critics of the U.S. food pyramid. He's even called its guidelines, quote, utterly ridiculous, as in U-D-D-E-R-L-Y, ridiculous. That's not something a Harvard scientist says lightly, but Dr. Willett's right. The pyramid just isn't based on key scientific findings about health. Everybody's happy, right? Well, I'm not, and you shouldn't be either. The public just isn't served by this watered-down, confusing, useless pyramid. Worse, some of the recommendations are downright harmful, like the one to drink more milk and dairy products. According to Dr. Walter Willett, who has done many of the studies and reviewed this topic extensively, there are many reasons to pass up milk, including 1, milk doesn't reduce bone fractures. Contrary to popular belief, eating dairy has never been shown to reduce fracture risk, but dairy may actually increase the risk of fractures by 50%, according to the Large Nurses Health Study. Less dairy equals better bones. Countries with the lowest rates of dairy and calcium consumption, like those in Africa and Asia, have the lowest rates of osteoporosis. Next thing is that calcium isn't as bone protective as we thought. Studies of calcium supplementation have showed no benefit in reducing fracture risk. Vitamin D, on the other hand, appears to be much more important than calcium in preventing fractures. Also, calcium may raise cancer risk. Research shows that higher intakes of both calcium and dairy products may increase a man's risk of prostate cancer by 30 to 50%. Plus, dairy consumption increases the body's level of insulin-like growth factor 1, a known cancer promoter. Calcium has benefits that dairy doesn't. Calcium supplements, but not dairy products, may reduce the risk of colon cancer. And another problem with dairy is that not everyone can stomach dairy. About 75%, or 3/4 of the world's population, is genetically unable to properly digest milk and other dairy products, a problem called lactose intolerance. So based on such findings, Dr. Walter Willett has come to some important conclusions. 1, everybody needs calcium, but probably not as much as our government's recommended daily allowance of 1,500 milligrams a day. 2, calcium probably doesn't prevent broken bones. Few people in this country are likely to reduce their fracture risk by getting more calcium. 3, men may not want to take calcium supplements. Supplements of calcium and vitamin D may be reasonable for women. And 4, dairy may be unhealthy. Advocating dairy consumption may have negative effects on health. Now, this is from Dr. Walter Willett, not me, so you should think about your next glass of milk. If all of that isn't enough to swear you off milk, there are a few other scientific findings worth noting. First, the Federal Trade Commission recently asked the USDA to look into the scientific basis of claims made in their milk mustache ads. The panel of scientists stated the truth clearly. Number one, milk doesn't benefit sports performance. Number two, there's no evidence that dairy is good for your bones and prevents osteoporosis. In fact, the animal protein in it may actually help cause bone loss. Number three, dairy is linked to prostate cancer. Number four, it's full of saturated fat and it's linked to heart disease. Number five, dairy causes digestive problems for 75% of people with lactose intolerance. And number six, dairy aggravates irritable bowel syndrome. Simply put, the FTC asked the dairy industry, got proof? And the answer was no. Plus, the dairy may contribute to even more health problems like allergies, sinus issues, ear infections, type 1 diabetes, chronic constipation, and anemia in children. But what about raw milk? Well, isn't that a healthier form of dairy? Well, not really. Yes, raw, whole, organic milk eliminates some of the concerns, like pesticides, hormones, antibiotics, and the effects of homogenization and pasteurization. But to me, these benefits don't outweigh dairy's potential risks. From an evolutionary point of view, milk is a strange food for humans. Until 10,000 years ago, we didn't domesticate animals, and we weren't able to drink milk unless some brave hunter-gatherer milked a wild tiger or a buffalo. Now, most scientists agree that it's better for us to get calcium, potassium, protein, and fats from other sources, like whole plant foods, vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and seaweed. Great source of minerals. Convinced yet? Well, here's my advice for dealing with dairy. If you want healthy bones, take vitamin D. Don't rely on dairy. Get your calcium from dark green leafy vegetables, sesame, tahini, sea vegetables, or sardines, or salmon with the bones in it. And try giving up all dairy, everything, and see how you feel after a few weeks. Still got milk? I hope not. Remember, dairy is not crucial for good health. I encourage you to go dairy-free and see what it does for you.
And now a short clip from this amazing documentary.
It's called the Type A Planning Guide. Now, it includes foods that are found in the basic 4 food groups because we are concerned about the total daily needs, and this is a part of it.
We must serve 1/2 pint of fresh fluid milk to provide calcium, riboflavin, and the other nutrients that are needed for our children.
For decades, the dairy industry and U.S. government have been saying that milk is good for our bones. While all whole foods contain calcium, an essential nutrient for bone health, it is argued that we need the higher amounts found in dairy. Children and aging women in particular have been singled out to drink more and more and more milk.
What do you think the most important nutrient we get from dairy products is, like milk? Calcium.
Calcium.
Calcium?
Calcium. 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 For calcium. The science in terms of dairy's role in healthy bones is pretty strong. And in fact, the National Osteoporosis Foundation, of course, utilizes that science in their recommendations.
Osteoporosis is a degenerative bone disease, which has been widely linked to a lack of calcium. If this is true, nations with a high intake of dairy products, which are a major source of calcium in a westernized diet, should have low levels of osteoporosis. But according to a study done by a distinguished Harvard researcher, nations with high levels of calcium intake tend to have high levels of hip fractures, which is a key indicator for osteoporosis.
And so, in fact, the higher the dairy consumption, the higher the rate of osteoporosis. Exactly the opposite of what the dairy industry has been telling us for so long. One of the primary mechanisms for that is that animal protein tends to create an acid-like condition in the body called metabolic acidosis.
To combat this condition, the body draws upon its most readily available acid buffer, namely calcium in our bones. As the calcium is extracted to neutralize the excess acid, our bones are weakened. In defending the health benefits of milk, many national health organizations now recommend that we consume low-fat dairy products.
It can be milk, it can be yogurt, it can be cheese, it can be anything made from milk. But again, the important message, it's a message that comes from the American Dietetic Association, the National Osteoporosis Foundation, cancer, heart. We're all on the same page. It needs to be low-fat or fat-free.
So as the fat's taken out, the protein becomes a larger proportion of the total. So they become higher in protein, lower in fat. And when we compare these high protein, low fat milk products, for example, with prostate cancer, the relationship is as strong as it is for cigarette smoking and lung cancer. Most of these animals here are what we call heifers. They're the young females, not yet cows.
So they haven't had their first calf yet.
They haven't had their first calf.
So they have to have their first calf before they can
Once
lactate.
they come into lactation, they almost keep them, these days, they keep them pregnant continuously
Exactly.
for 3 or 4 years.
Why are they eating grass now?
Well, this is the last time in their lifetime they're going to see grass. After that, they're in the barn, they're standing there for the rest of their life. When I was young, we defended our product, promoted our product, because it was nature's most perfect food. And so I believe that. But it took on a slightly different twist as time passed. I mean, it's the most perfect food for calves. And trying to switch the milk of one species to another species doesn't make a lot of sense.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Milk. The ordinary drink that makes ordinary people do the most horrible things. Mutant milk. The most dangerous beverage in the world.
What is in milk that you say is poisonous, and why would the government be covering this up?
But what's in milk? You're drinking body fluids from other animals. 60% of the cows in America have leukemia virus. 80% have something called paratuberculosis. You don't want to eat something with that name, paratuberculosis. You've got irritable bowel syndrome in America. That's what it causes. 4 million American women have irritable bowel syndrome.
Concern, though, you talk about the bovine growth hormone.
Hormone is the big word here. There are 4,000 mammals. There are 500,000 different hormones. Only one hormone, this is the big secret the dairy industry doesn't want you to know. Only one hormone is identical in all of nature between two animals. It's human and cow. It's the most powerful growth hormone in our body. Drink a 12-ounce glass of milk. Double the only hormone that makes breast cancer grow once you get it.
Mother says milk is good. What is this? Milk is no good.
Let me tell you about milk. The number one protein in milk is casein, C-A-S-E-I-N. That's 80% of the protein in milk. That's the same glue they use to put a label on a bottle of beer. That's the same glue they use to hold your wooden furniture together.
So we're drinking glue.
You're drinking glue and you create so much mucus. This much casein, this much mucus.
What qualifies you to talk about these?
Well, the greatest controversy in the history of the Food and Drug Administration was the genetic engineering of milk. I'm the only person in America to be invited to meet with a group of top scientists at FDA. They used to do research, $50 word, psychoneuroendocrinology, the study of brain and behavior, how hormones affect behavior. And I uncovered secrets. I opened up a Pandora's box of secrets that the dairy industry wishes had never been opened. Every scientist in the world knows that protein inhibits calcium absorption, and milk is liquid meat. It's protein.
Goen says dairy products are a poor source of calcium for another reason.
What nations have the highest rates of breast cancer in the world? I ask people, they say, United States. Denmark, Norway, Holland, and Sweden. What nations have the highest rates of osteoporosis, crippling bone disease? Denmark, Norway, Holland, and Sweden. Every dairy farmer, and there are probably a few in the audience now, you know that for every 100 pounds of milk you produce, you got to pay 15 cents to the national fluid milk processors. Doesn't sound like a lot of money. What are they doing with that money? $500 million a year to paint milk mustaches on the lips of models.
When you take a break, make it milk for vitality.
2 points. 1, you do not get vitamin D3 from milk. 2, milk leaches calcium out of your bones. You're hurting yourself or you're healing yourself. It's your choice. And hopefully you've learned a little something that'll help you make a better choice. Thanks for watching. See you next time.